Hello, fellow Minecrafters. Gearsaw Studios here. Today, I'm going to show you how to build a path, and specifically three of them, because although you may think you can probably build a path, there is a lot you can do with paths, and those village paths you see around aren't the best. So, before I begin, remember, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. So, with that, onto the tutorial. For this paths palette, we're going to be using just a lot of dirt, which means we're going to be using coarse dirt, rooted dirt, normal dirt, and podzol. And the normal dirt has turned into grass. But we do not want grass for this build, which is why we have the podzol and coarse dirt, because they will make sure that the inside dirt cannot be grown over, because if grass cannot connect to the dirt, then it doesn't grow, which means we can have actual dirt paths. So make sure you get your coarse dirt, podzol, and if you have enough of it, rooted dirt works well for texturing the inner dirt. So that's a lot of dirty talk, but now we need to figure out where we want this. For this first path, I've already started a tiny amount of it. We are going to have it connect up to this tiny little fork 4 looking thing at the end of this village, so it's going to be a nice small path. And it's going to take just a little curvy route all the way through here, so it connects to this end. But we aren't going to fully connect it because that would involve reworking the entire path system with the village, and that's usually not the best thing to do. So we've decided what our path is going to look like approximately and where it's going to go. So we need to get it started. So what we do initially is just have a kind of wavy line of coarse dirt. We add the podzol later because although you probably want to do it as you go, what happened to me when I was trying to do this originally is I'd always get stuck on doing the podzol and I wouldn't know how good it would look. So you should just do a thick line, 2 blocks thick, of coarse dirt going to your destination following the path you want. So the best way to do this is to just walk around or sprint around if you have enough food or you're just that kind of person, and just roughly trace the path of where you walked because the insides of those lines are the places you're most likely going to walk in an actual scenario, therefore giving the path an actual usage. Although the best idea would just be going straight, of course, that's not the best looking. So go where you think you'd go normally, and make that 2 block thick line of coarse dirt. So I've done a little bit of progress, and one thing you may have noticed is height elevation. And typically you can ignore this as long as you're not using actual grass paths, but a little thing you should probably do is just patch them up. If it's something small like this, just get your dirt storage and start filling it up, because the path derailment that this causes makes it less traversable and it's not even a big deal to patch up. So if there's a small dip in terrain less than about 10 blocks, then I recommend just filling it up because it makes the path less useful and less likely to be used. Along with that, it makes it less pretty. So you just patch up small holes if you see them as just being an inconvenience and easily filled. So we now have a proper outline, but it doesn't have any podzol yet. But one thing you might notice is the fact that it's not completely perfect. Some pieces are thicker than others, and some can get a little thin. However, this is what makes a path good, because it doesn't look all mechanically generated like the village ones are. Because you can see, it's just a solid 3 block with a couple of grass blocks mixed in. And although, yes, it is still kind of pretty, this, when done, will be a lot better. So, we can see the coarse dirt is in, and it looks actually kind of natural. So, what we need to do now is scatter around some podzol. So, just good 1 or 2 block blobs will work good. And you could possibly even make them shoot out a little bit into the terrain like this. Or you could just leave that to the coarse dirt. Either way, add some texturing to this using podzol. So I've mixed in some podzol, and it might not be your favorite. So some of you building these paths might not want to include podzol, considering it can be a little bit tedious to get, considering you either need a mega taiga or you need to grow a mega taiga tree and gather out all the dirt with silk touch, which just might be a little bit too much of a hassle. So what we want to do now is convert this interior to dirt. So all you have to do is punch out the grass. And if you're somewhere stony, even easier. You're not on a timer. So you have to do this all in one push. Because what will happen is this grass will spread back onto the dirt. And the coarse dirt on the outside prevents the rest of the world piling in. However, over time, this grass will spread back in. So you either have to do it all in one fell swoop, or you have to put something where grass can't grow on top of in order to divide it off until you're ready to do more. So, kill all the grass and turn it into dirt. So, I've properly punched out all the grass, and we're left with a nearly complete path. And it might be a little hard to define the border, but the podzol really helps in defining where the path ends and the grass begins. So, of course, we have a path. And there's one last thing we can add to it. Say you found an azalea tree. What you can do is take out all the rooted dirt and make rooted dirt texturing. And, of course, make it in the pattern of roots. So, long, winding bands. So don't have one giant clump. Instead, make them have whole things going everywhere. Say a couple blocks here, a couple blocks there, connected by a thin line that doesn't properly connect at diagonals like this. Now we can add texturing because we have something that blends in well, the rooted dirt, and we have the grass properly kicked out. With this path finished with the rooted dirt, we just have this nice path. And although it doesn't serve too much of a practical purpose, it's very pretty to look at, and the rooted dirt ties it all together, which can be interpreted as, well, roots if you're up close, but say you're flying over it with an elytra, it kind of looks like giant cracked stones, say a giant dirty cobblestone, which is utterly amazing to think about. If you had these going all across your world, say over to your hobbit hole or whatever stuff you have in your world, it looks absolutely gorgeous. And it's small and it might be a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it. However, this is not the end of today's video. We have two other paths to cover, which work in different situations, or this doesn't work out too well. Say a jungle. So, unfortunately, I don't have any good jungle builds in this world. So, we're just going to have to connect some random pieces of wilderness up, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. So, our palette is going to be cobblestone, mossy cobblestone, and tough. So, this particular design works well in lush areas, but works well in other biomes, but it doesn't work in arid places like the desert, the Badlands, and some drier places such as, say, the savanna. So you have to be a little bit careful about this. It also doesn't work in snowy areas, by the way, because the snow would constantly come down on it and it's still a little too green. So what we do is, let's start from here by this hill, and we just place down some random cobble blocks. Very similar to what the village does. However, the key detail is we're completely random about this. Although the village has just one block, we have many blocks, which means we can go through and we can curve the path a little by adding blocks in certain areas. Which means what we do is we have some tough, we have some mossy cobble, and we kind of can just curve around, which means this one's a lot easier to connect it to other areas, which means if you have a lot of things crammed into one area, you might just want to have this path because it's easier to build. While the other path you can just take out the coarse dirt and podzol and create another piece of it, this one, no preparation required, which means you can spontaneously start doing this whenever. which means you should probably do this one if you're not very good at building yet. So just go around using cobble, mossy cobble, and tuff, and curve around to connect to various things, such as a bush that you like, or a house, but there isn't many good examples in this area, which means just go around randomly if you don't have anything to do with it. So sometimes you just have a little bit of trouble sparking off the pathway, which it's completely understandable. A lot of builds are hard to just start beginning to build, and it can be a little hard to find the motivation or you just get lost. So what I do is I just leave a line of cobblestone. This establishes the line that the path will take, which means we can just go around this, take out some blocks here and there to make it look a little more natural, and then we can add the blocks from here. Another high IQ thing you can do is make it fade away a little bit more the closer it is to its destination. Say you have something all the way over there, then make it fade away if no one's going to be using it often. So if something's distant, then make it less fulfilled. But if something's on heavy traffic, make it more fulfilled. With this nice texture, we have a path. And the important thing about this path is the priority of objects. Say, this bush over here. It's not as important as these two trees. Granted, neither of them are very important, but let's pretend they are. And this mountain. I mean, this actually has some value considering the mining potential it has inside. So, obviously there'd be a bit more traffic here, which is why I added more blocks here versus over here by these kinda not important bushes. So, not much explanation required. It's indefinitely expandable, and it's cheap. So, it works very well in most environments. Now, it's time for the third and final design. For our final path design, we're going to be doing something that fits in with the savanna, because savannas are rather common biomes, and their unique grass color kind of makes it hard to do anything luscious, but it also makes it a little hard to do other things, such as the dirt pathway I was showing at the beginning, which means what we need is something that bridges the two, something unorganized, but with a good palette, which is perfectly suited by dripstone and granite together. So, just like the first path, just do dripstone and granite. I mean, the second path. So, what you can do is you can combine these two, and although it might not look good at first, with the addition of several other pinkish blocks over time, it makes a very good pattern that will allow you to bridge around in the savanna. So, grab other blocks and repeat what I did for the second bridge, because it's more or less the same thing, but with different blocks. So, I've built a path from the front of my blacksmith room all the way to the side of my cartography room. Now, the thing is, there's a beach right here, and it's best not to continue paths onto beaches, because the thing about beaches is, well, one, they work better with wood-based palettes, and two, they're also kind of unorganized. It's just some sand, and it's time to just be calm on the beach, which means if you have a path that goes near the beach, you might want to just go a little further and change it to a birch path. But now it extends all the way to this side of the building, which means we have something that works well in savanna climates. Granted, this is only one biome, but still, it's important to know. Now, there's some general tips I can give. One, the density. So, about the second path, walking around near certain areas should warrant better paths, while in less developed areas, say somewhere you very rarely go, then the path should be thin. So, account for that. And two, if your path is going up very steep things, such as a savanna plateau, mountains, or just other things you can think of, then it might be worth just transitioning to a staircase for a while, because you might just end up having an unusable path, and an unusable path is a useless path. So, there's no point in trying to make a path go all the way up this very steep hill. Instead, just build some sort of staircase. So, of course, there's other tips you should use, and don't forget to innovate. Now, before I end the video, there's one thing I want you to know. So, of course, we need lighting. This path is pretty and all, but we need something surrounding it. So, a lamppost. Very simple. It can just be something like this, curving a little, and can come right back down. And when it ends, although this isn't the best example, you can have a lantern. So, I didn't put too much effort into this particular lamppost, but try to add lighting to your path in the form of possibly just small logs with lanterns on top, lampposts, which are hopefully better than this, because I wasn't planning this one too hard, and just whatever you can think of. Possibly even plant a couple of trees. So, get some bone meal, get some azaleas, and torches. So, what you can do with this is just grow an azalea or whatever tree and place a torch. Now you got a little more lighting. And surrounding the path with trees is an amazing way to make it look better. So, adding a couple more azaleas, and we have some shade now. And the more you add, usually the better. But don't go completely overboard. But make sure that you have a little bit of landscaping, because once this is done, we have a beautiful path. With the final details added, as in lighting and landscape, we have just a marvelous path right here. So, of course, add paths into your world. They're absolutely amazing. You can have pretty sights like these. And don't forget to keep them well lit. It's even safer because with all the lighting, there's going to be less mobs on the trail. Which means there's literally no point to not building one of these. It's pretty, and it even can make your life safer. So, I highly recommend building a path, whether it be this design, a more lush design, or possibly even a savanna design. They're all equally good, and you should definitely try building them. In fact, share your tips and tricks in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you have to say, because everyone could benefit from your ideas. So, with that, it's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, remember, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. So, with that, take care, be creative, Gearsaw out.